good for everything, but when it came to us, to creating us, rational beings, beings with emotions and feelings, someone that God himself can talk to, can have a conversation with, can go down and like just have a life with, he didn't just say, oh, it's good. He said, it's very good. And then in chapter 2, we see the opposite of that verse. We see that Adam was lonely. And then we see that verse says, it's not good that Adam is lonely. Do you guys see the connection? So everything that was created is good, right? When it came to Adam, it was what? Very good. It was like a special relationship. But then God saw that there was something missing. He of course, he knew that he's going to create Eve. It wasn't like, oh my God, I forgot to. No, it wasn't like this. But the choice of words, it says it's not good for a man to be alone. So he put him to sleep and he took Eve out of Adam. He created Eve out of Adam. So we see that first friendship in the Bible based on that human relationship. God, yes, enjoyed his time with Adam, but he also wanted Adam to feel like he can talk to someone and have that human relationship, and he created Eve out of Adam, right? So one of the common things that we see, the essence of any friendship, the essence of any relationship is that God has to be in the midst. And I'm pretty sure that you guys have heard this statement in different talks, dating conversations, different priest conversations. God has to be the center. But in that first friendship, God was literally the center of that friendship, right? Because there's no other option, right? Like, God gave Adam and Eve the ability to name the animals, but Adam and Eve did not have a relationship with the animals like they had with one another. So God, by choice, not by force, was in the midst of their friendship and in the midst of their relationship, and therefore in the midst of their marriage. They chose him. So one of the things that I want you to think about as we one of the things that we're gonna see, or one of the things, that I want you to think of, how often do we choose God to be in that we want to live in his presence, and how often do we choose God to be in the midst of any friendship that we're in? Like, do we put conscious effort, and do we make it a point that I want God to be in the center of my friendship, my relationship, or whatever? Or I just go about life, like I go to school and then I make friends, and then I go to a job and then I make friends. It's like it's forced on you. So think about this question throughout the night. Am I putting intentional effort to make God the center of my friendship, of my relationship, of everything that I'm in? Or if the opportunity comes and I remember God, or like I'm struggling and then I need God, then I bring him in the midst. Do you guys see the difference, or do you guys get the difference? Okay. One of the things that I read or heard, I don't remember, when I was prepping for this a few months ago, is we need to differentiate between having close friends and godly friends, because not every close friend is a godly friend. How many of you agree with this statement? Not every close friend, not every best friend that I have is necessarily a godly person. They can be a good time. They can be fun friends. They can be my school. It could be your cousin, your school friends, your roommate, whoever that person is. But that doesn't mean that this person, since that person is so close to you, it means that this person is also close to God. We're not saying this from a judgmental point of view, right? Like, all of us struggle in our relationship with God. All of us have our ups and downs, high and lows, right? But some people put intentional effort into making God the center of their lives, and other people, when they live their lives, and then when something bad happens, they turn to God, they get what they need, and then life moves on, right? So not every person in my life is a godly friend, and that's what we are going to talk about. But before we jump into the main topic of discussion, when we think about friendships, we always think about the qualities that we want in other people, right? So I'm just going to ask you this simple question. I'm not going to ask you what you're looking for in your friends. What kind of friend are you to your friends? If we're talking from a relationship perspective, you always have this criteria, right? Like, I want this person to be tall, to be handsome, to be whatever. Like, whatever, each person has a different criteria, right? But how often do we look at ourselves and say, what kind of person am I? So, what kind of friend are you? Describe anything about yourself. I don't know you, so I'm not going to judge you. And I only know like 3 people here. أكيد عندكم صفات. Pretty sure. What kind of friend are you? Are you a loyal friend? Are you a loving friend? Are you a caring friend? Are you a mean friend? Could be all of the above. But what I want you to think about is, don't get fixated on the type of person that you want to be with and forget about yourself. Forget building yourself. Forget working on yourself. Because if I create this image of a friendship or a relationship, but then I'm not really putting any effort into being that person for the other person, or for me actually, not for the other person, then I'm never going to be satisfied with whoever is in my life, whether it's a friend or like friendship-wise or relationship-wise. Does that make sense? So just don't get too fixated on that side. So tell me, what are some of the characteristics of a godly friendship? مصلحة تتكلموا هتتكلموا. أنا مش سايق ساعتين عشان تقعدوا ساكتين. What kind of characteristics? Yes, Patrick. Someone who pushes you towards salvation. Very true. What else? Someone that brings the best out of you. Very true. What else? I know you have good friends, so don't look at me like this. I know you are good friend, you're good people, and you have good friends. So what are those characteristics that you find in your godly friends? More. There's no toxicity in that friendship or relationship. Very true. Anything from this? Yes. They show Christ and Jesus in themselves, whether through actions or words. Someone who feels your joy, experiences your pain with you. Very true. The friendship itself honors God. Very true. Someone who doesn't judge you. Very true. Any other thoughts? Okay, I'll add a couple of more things. And as we go through the next couple of things, like those characteristics that we're going to discuss, if anything comes to your mind, please stop me and talk about it or ask anything about it. One of the first and most important qualities that we should look for, and also we should exhibit ourselves, is that godly friends strive to bring God into their midst and push each other towards God, like Patrick just said a few minutes ago. And one of the most beautiful stories in the New Testament that we've seen is the story of the friends who brought their paralyzed friend to Christ. They didn't do it because they were forced. They didn't do it because they were going to get paid for it. They didn't do it knowing that he is going to be healed, right? They hoped that Christ would heal him. But out of the desire that they had, and when we look at the choice of words again in the Gospel of Mark, out of their faith, on behalf of their friend, they decided to go the extra mile, and then go the extra mile, and then go the extra mile, and present their friend to Christ. And Christ healed that person again. And I'm a firm believer of this statement that I'm about to say. All of us are where we are in life today because of the prayers of people in our lives. Whether it's your parents, whether it's Abuna, John or Abuna here, whether it's Tata, whoever that person is, all of us are who we are and where we are in life, not because we're good, not because that we have amazing skills or personalities or experience. These are great things that we acquire, but someone else, whether we know that person or we don't, someone else is on their knees consistently praying for us. And God is listening to their prayers, and He's working in my life because of their faith. So how do you want to be that person? How do you want to exhibit those characteristics for other people? Is your faith strong? Your faith is strong for you, the first and foremost, and then for others, to be able to bring others to Christ. Because how can you bring someone to Christ if you don't know Christ? It's not going to work. I can stand here, if you guys know me, you know that I love asir asab. I actually drank 18 cups of sugar cane in 10 days. And that's why I'm pre-diabetic, obviously, which I knew 2 months ago. But if you know me, I can stand here and give a whole presentation about why everyone should drink asab. I can convince you in less than 10 minutes. Because I've had experiences growing up with asab. سافرت وشربت ورحت وجيت. Asab has always been consistent in my life, right? So I'm able to convince you about it. The same thing with Christ. If you have faith, if you have that relationship, if you have that intimacy with Christ, you're able to bring Christ in the lives of your friends, and you're able to bring your friends with their troubles in the midst of Christ. Or present that person to Christ and tell them, I love that person so much, he's struggling, and I want you to do something strong and great in their lives. Not necessarily heal them, not necessarily do a miracle, but you're being a godly friend, you're bringing that person in the midst of Christ, and you're bringing Christ in the midst of that friendship or that relationship. If Christ is not the center of my life, then obviously I'm going to be lukewarm or probably dead, and I won't be able to be of much help to other people. You guys have read this verse before in Proverbs, as iron shapes iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. If I look at you and I see your friends, I'm going to be able to tell what kind of person you are. So, all of us. For the most part, it's somewhat true or somewhat accurate, but there is always differences, right? But that's the concept of that verse. The righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray. The righteous, who's the righteous? Who can we call a righteous person? Someone who doesn't sin? No, because all of us sin. The righteous person is someone who sins and stands back up again ala tul, instantly. He doesn't wait too long. So the righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray. So the first characteristic we talked about is godly friends strive to bring Christ in the midst of that friendship or relationship consistently. Not when things are good, but consistently. The second thing is godly friends seek the best for others, even if it's going to cause them or create some harm. I'll give you an example. One of the best friendships in the Bible, and one of the best friendships that I personally look up to in the Bible, is David and Jonathan. أحلى اتنين. Jonathan had every right to hate David and to want to kill David. He had every right. And if he have done it and probably repentant, most likely God would have accepted him. Right? Jonathan was supposed to be the next king of Judah after his dad. But everyone loved David, everyone glorified David, Saul hated David. So for 18 years, Saul was trying to kill David. Who was supposed to be helping his father kill David? Jonathan. What did Jonathan do? Multiple occasions, Jonathan helped David escape. One of the best verses here, and when you read it in 1 Samuel, it says, "Now when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul." This defies human logic. Like, think about it in like our terms today. You've been in this company for 5 years. You know you're due for a promotion, and then they bring another person, or the CEO's son is there, and everyone knows that he's going to get that promotion. And then all of a sudden you see that the CEO's son helping you and going out of his way for you to get that promotion, although everyone knows that it should go to that guy. It defies logic. But the Bible was like, the expression was, it's so beautiful. It says, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. They loved each other as if they were blood siblings. And they weren't. They were supposed to be enemies. So even though Jonathan knew by helping David, he's putting his own life in danger, he still sought the best for David. Because he knew that David was chosen from God and by God. So godly friends seek the best for each other, for one another, even if it's going to cost them anything. And that's what we've seen with David and Jonathan. Another part in the story, it says, "Then Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David in the woods and strengthened his hand in God." I want you to go back to read chapter 23 whenever you guys have time. Basically, Saul was trying to kill David, and then Jonathan and David had an agreement. And this was the last time Jonathan and David met, before Jonathan was killed. Spoiler alert if you haven't read 1 Samuel. So Jonathan went and helped his friend one last time to escape from his father, even though he knew that by helping him, Saul could kill him. He didn't fear for his life. He didn't care about his life. He knew that David, again, was appointed by God, and he was going to be the next king. So he risked his own life, not on one occasion, on so many different occasions, because he always sought the best for his friend. So the same thing with the lepers, the leper's friend. The leper's friend did not give up on him, neither did they surrender to the situation despite everything that they had to go through. So ask yourself this question. Am I the kind of friend who doesn't shy away from pointing out weaknesses without judging the other person? Like, if I see that my friend is struggling with something, and I truly want to seek the best for that person, am I going to be that person who's going to go and confront my friend and tell them, like, I really care about you and I really love you and I really want the best for you, but you're struggling with kaza kaza? Not from a judgmental point of view, because I truly care for the salvation of that person. Or am I going to say, well, that's who he is, I'm not going to go and change that person, even though I know that this is the best thing for that person? So we talked about two characteristics so far. You guys remember the first one? Godly friends strive to bring God in the midst of that friendship. Second one, godly friends always seek the best for others, even if it's going to cost them anything. The third one, godly friends put effort and are very intentional in the friendship. Now we live in a very fast-paced world. If I don't intentionally schedule time to meet with my friends, I'm not going to see them. If I don't put effort to text someone, if I don't put effort to call someone, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be like, hi, how are you? Rabbana ma'ak. And priests struggle the most with it, because priests, they don't have 2 or 3 people to check on. They have a whole congregation to check on. And we, as part of the congregation, I don't want the priest to tell me, hey, how's your day? I want them to make me feel special, right? That's what we want. We want our parents, our fathers, to make us feel special. So it becomes a more difficult task for the priest of the congregation to reach out, not just, hey, what's up, but like put the effort and intentional effort in that friendship, right? So if I want to have a godly friendship, I also need to find time and put intentional effort in that friendship. I want to invest in that friendship, because I know that that friendship is going to have fruitful fruits in the future. And the example, one of the things before we get to the example, I heard this in a sermon and I really liked it. It says, casual friends can be the result of your circumstances, but close friends should be the result of your conscious choices. Read it again. Casual friends can be the result of your circumstances. Yani, you went to UCI, UCR, whatever school you went to. You made friends in class, you made friends in the 4 or 5 years that you stayed there. These are casual friends. Right? Like you've taken classes with the same person, so you became friends with them. It's kind of circumstances, right? But close friends should be the result, bless you, should be the result of your conscious choice. Yes, I had 5 random friends. You're not random people, but I had 5 random friends during school. But I see that there is one friendship that I can invest in, and I am gaining something out of it, and I see. So I become more intentional about that friendship. Does that make any sense? So remember what we said earlier. Not every close friend is a godly friend. Right? So we need to kind of differentiate here. What kind of friends do we have? And again, keep reminding yourself with the other question that we said. What kind of friend am I for other people? Because I can't expect people to be perfect and I'm not even working on myself. It's not fair. We see in John 15, Christ says here, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. The choice of words here are also very interesting. We know that Christ died for who? For everyone, right? But what word did he choose to describe us? It's not a trick question. Friends, right? He died for everyone. But when he looked at us, when we look at the cross here, especially during Good Friday, and we're sitting filled with a lot of emotions, I look at the cross and I hear the verse saying, for God so loved Andrew that he sent his only begotten son and he died for me. That doesn't take away from dying for every other person in the church, but that love becomes personal. That relationship becomes personal. That sacrifice becomes personal. We're not doing a show throughout Holy Week. We're not going through emotions and feelings and then it dies down. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't work that way. When we start shifting our mindsets and looking at what Christ said, calling us friends, not slaves, not random people, not those people, not the sinners, not the righteous. He's called us friends. And he chose to die for each and every one of us. St. Augustine once said, I think in his book, like the Confessions, if there was no one else in the world, Christ would have still came and died for me. It was just you and there's no one else, he wouldn't hesitate. He still would have came and died for you. That's the kind of friend God is for us. Am I that kind of friend to others or not? Am I willing to sacrifice my time, my effort, my energy, whatever resources that I have for others, like Christ sacrificed more than time and money and effort? He sacrificed his own life for me or not? That's one thing I need to ask myself. Am I putting enough effort and am I being intentional with others based on their actions toward me or because I'm willing to and I want to? If that person is nice to you, you'll be nice to them, right? And that's what Christ said. If you love those who love you, what gain did you have? What benefit did you get? It's so easy to love those who love us. Like, it's so easy. And it's 10 times more difficult to love those who give you a hard time, who are mean to you, who are rude to you. And that's when love is tested. And again, we've seen him on the cross. Father, curse them, for they know what they're doing. Is that what he said? Ya Lahawi. What did Christ say? Father, forgive them. He was being intentional in his love for each and every person. Yes, they did it out of ignorance, yet he still chose to love them intentionally, and he put effort into showing that love. He didn't differentiate between the two thieves. He didn't look to the right and whispered few keywords or whispered like a secret sauce. The same chance was presented to both of them. That's intentional love. That's intentional sacrifice. One took advantage of that sacrifice, one did not take advantage of sacrifice. Again, as we're going through the list of characteristics, what kind of friend are you? That's the question that we should be thinking about. The next one, godly friends should esteem and encourage one another. إحنا alhamdulillah وبلا فخر, we live in a society that is deprived from any encouragement. This new generation has no self-esteem, no confidence, nothing. People are thirsty and are dying and are looking for love in every way possible, and we've seen it in front of our eyes. صح? We don't see that type of love or encouragement or esteem at all. And when we find someone who's kind enough, we find ourselves attached to that person. Right? There's few people, when they hug us, we feel so loved. صح? You can think of a few priests or a few siblings, parents, whoever that person is. And these people have no bad intention. They truly and genuinely love you for who you are, and they don't want anything from you. Right? So the characteristic of a godly friend is someone who finds the good in the other person and encourages that person and esteems that person, not puts that person down. It's so easy to criticize one another. صح? It's so easy to point out the weaknesses. Oh, you came late. Oh, look at what she's wearing. Oh, look what the tattoo that he has. Oh, look at marafsh. It's طب what about that he actually showed up to church? I could care less who he is, what he's doing, whatever. The fact that that person came today is a blessing. So why are we focusing on that negative thing and forget the positive thing? You guys know something about the prodigal son story. I'm sure you've heard this before. In the Jewish tradition back then, if someone like the prodigal son would go back to his father, would go to his father in the first instance, ask for his inheritance, that's a very shameful thing. So if that person wants to come back and repent, if he doesn't get to his father first, the Jewish law would kill him by stoning. So if that person is walking towards his house and he hasn't met his father yet and the people saw him, they would stone him. So we see in the story of the prodigal son, every day the father would go stand at the edge of the city waiting for who? Waiting for his son. And the moment he saw his son, what did he do? He hugged him and he put the robe on him. That means no one can touch him. He already set that boundary around him. He saved him before the enemy tried to come. He knew that he was going to get criticized. He knew that he was going to most likely could get stoned. But he was like, no one is touching him. I accept his repentance. And God does the same thing with us. But do we do the same thing with others? Do we find the good in our friends and encourage them and invest in them and have them grow their virtues? Or do we look at the negative things in them and shame them and make them feel guilty and question them and make them doubt themselves and every other thing that we do? St. Paul said in Hebrews 10, let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works. That's what we should do together. Encourage each other to show love and to do good works. If you don't know me, which you don't, Now you do. Paul, or St. Paul, is my favorite person in the entire world. And then Mother Teresa, Muhammad Salah, and then Nicole, my wife. Like, it's just, like, she knows this, and I'm sure it's recorded, so yeah. So St. Paul is my favorite person of all time. And St. Paul wouldn't be St. Paul as we know him today if it wasn't for an older guy called Barnabas. Have you guys heard this name before? Bulus or Barnabas. You guys heard Barnabas or Barnabas before? So when Saul went through the conversion, he went to the desert, the desert in the Arabia desert for 3 years, and then he came back to Jerusalem to start preaching with the disciples. So when he went back to the disciples, this is the first time Paul meets the disciples, they all questioned him like, "You're a killer. Like, how do I know you're not faking this? How do we know you're not a spy?" So we read this part in Acts chapter 9. It says, when Saul had come to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples. And we're talking about the OG disciples, like Peter, John, Andrew, like the disciples. But they were all afraid of him and did not believe that he was a disciple. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. So if it wasn't for Barnabas vouching for him and saying, "I trust this guy," that tabai, like, I know he's true, he's not fake. I know that what he went through is a real conversion. I can tell you, like, he's a good guy. I'm sure we would still have had the New Testament, but how many books did he write? 14 epistles. Like, if it wasn't for this guy finding something good in Paul and vouching for him, maybe we wouldn't have had Paul. Again, this is a wrong statement. God would have found another way. But do you guys get the idea? Do we do this for one another or not? Do I find, what's your name? Victor. Do I find what Victor is good in, and I push him to invest in his abilities and his talents more? I was like, I'm busy, he's busy, life is busy. It's not my responsibility. I'm sure at one point in life he's going to figure out his own life. Or, Rabbana ma'ak. Like, I'll pray for you. That's the easy answer, right? And we even say it and we don't mean it. But I want to be like Barnabas. I want to see what each person in my group of friends is good at, and I want to help them invest and grow in the virtues that they have. The next one, are you guys bored? Okay, one more? Okay. The next one, godly friends bring peace instead of fire. I'll say it in Arabic and then in English. إحنا بنحب نولع الدنيا. صح؟ ولاد وبنات، يعني ملهاش علاقة بالgender at this point. It's equivalent both ways. I hear something, Patrick, did you hear what happened? Kaza, 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 kaza. And then I say it to Patrick, and then Patrick says it to 5 other people, and then 10 other people, and then it's like one small thing that I said, and then it's a completely different story 10 minutes later, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It's just like rumors spread or whatever. So godly friends, they strive to bring peace instead of fire. And we all know this verse, blessed are the peacemakers. يعني إيه كلمة peacemaker? What is the actual meaning of peacemakers? Who can you call a peacemaker? God was a peacemaker, but he's talking about blessed are those who are peacemakers. So who are, like, what do they do? They open the door when someone knocks, bringing peace, bringing that person to Christ. What else besides opening doors? Okay, let me ask you this question. Do you consider yourself a peacemaker? Or the opposite of a peacemaker? You don't have to answer me. Just think about it for a second. When you go through events in your life, do you find yourself acting in a way that you're trying to bring peace to the conversation, to the person, like you're trying to de-escalate the situation? Or do you find yourself going with the flow and like, we're having a conversation and I just heard a piece of fresh gossip and I know if I say it, it's going to make things more interesting and I want more tea, right? Like I want to listen to more. So I know if I add something, she's going to add something and then he's going to add something. So what kind of person am I? Am I trying to be a peacemaker? Am I trying to bring peace, bring Christ into the midst of the fire that is happening? Or am I just adding more fuel to the fire? And it's tough. Because it's easier to go with the flow than to stand out. صح? We don't even feel that we're like adding fire or fuel to the fire. We just do it so regularly, like we don't feel anything. Like we don't see anything wrong with it. But Christ said, blessed are the peacemakers who intentionally bring peace. And what is peace, or who is peace? Christ. Christ is peace, right? The disciples themselves fought so many times among one another, in the midst of one another. Who's the greater? John or James or this or that? If they were, for the lack of better words, smart enough, they would have realized like Christ is literally physically in our midst. What are we fighting about? Is it worth your peace? If you're engaged in a conversation or in a friendship or in a situation, whatever it is, and it's costing you your peace, you need your inner peace. You need to ask yourself, and you need to be very honest with yourself. Why am I still in this conversation or in this situation? Because I have to, because I'm forced to, or am I looking for my inner peace? Because Christ said, blessed are the peacemakers. Am I someone who strives to bring peace in the midst of any presence or anywhere where I am? Or am I just going with the flow? وخلاص. St. Paul said, speak the truth, but in love. You are in a conversation, things are getting heated up, and you need to say something. And you know what you're about to say is the truth, but it's going to hurt the other person, or it's going to hurt 9 out of 10 people in the conversation. Are you going to do it, or you're going to be like, I don't want to. I don't want to make it more difficult for me. I don't want them to say like this person is kaza or kaza. What are you going to do? Are you going to speak the truth and could care less about what people say? Or are you going to speak the truth in love and then let the other person make their choice? Do you guys think when Christ came and lived and preached on earth, everyone loved what he said? Did everyone accept him for who he is? No. The same people Sunday morning who shouted, Osanna, Osanna, half of them probably were the same people on Friday who said what? Crucify him, crucify him. He didn't go to appeal to every person. He delivered his message to every person. But he wasn't trying to appeal and like, please, ashan khatri. And we've seen this in John chapter 6, the chapter that talks about communion or the sacrament of the Eucharist. The moment he started preaching about it, and once he said, if you don't drink my blood and if you don't eat my body, you have no life in you. You guys know what the next verse says? A lot of people left. A lot of his disciples left from that moment on. And then he looked back at his own disciples, the 12 disciples, and he said, do you guys want to go too? And then Peter answered his famous response, إِلَى أَيْنَ نَذْهَبُ وَعَنْدَكَ الْحَيَاةَ الْأَبَدِيَّةَ. Where should we go? And you have eternal life. When Christ saw people leaving, he's like, no, like, I promise, I didn't mean it that way. Please stay. He didn't do that. He still spoke the truth, but in love. Do we do the same thing or not? The last thing, because I'm thirsty, godly friends rejoice for one another and also feel the pain of each other. I'm not envious if I see one of my friends succeeding faster than me, or if that person is in a better state than me. But the reality is we feel jealous. We feel like, طب ما أنا عملت كل حاجة. I've done everything I can. Both of us were in the same school. Both of us applied together. He got in and I didn't get in. What did I do wrong? Why is God not fair to me? Why am I struggling? Then we ask a lot of whys, right? Think about the difference between the lepers friends, and the prodigal son, older brother. What happened at the end of each story? The leper's friends, were they happy or sad that their friend was healed? They were happy. They were extremely joyful that their effort was successful. They brought their friend to Christ and Christ healed them. On the other hand, with the prodigal son, older brother, when he came back, how did he react? He went in and he was extremely mad at his father. I've served you all these years. I've worked for you. I've taken over my brother's job and I've done this and this, and you haven't done 10% of what you've done for him. He's a sinner. He's kaza, kaza, kaza. On the other hand, he should have rejoiced that his own brother came from the dead. What kind of friend are you? Are you the type of person who's going to mirror the leper's friends? You're going to do your best to present your friends to Christ. You're going to do whatever you can to bring others to Christ, and you're going to be happy. You're going to rejoice for them, or you're going to be like the prodigal son's older brother. If one member suffers, all the members suffer with it, and if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Not by words, but by feelings and emotions and actions. You don't have to go through the same pain that your friend is going through, but you can be there for that person without saying a word, just hugging them, crying with them, and that means the world for them. You don't have to tell them, I feel your pain, because you don't feel their pain. You can't. The last 10 years, I've been working with the homeless population. Thank you. No, thank you. The last 10 years, I've been working with the homeless population. That's like my full-time job. And one of the things that they taught me when I started doing outreach, like going out and looking for people experiencing homelessness, my supervisor at the time, she said, never tell someone, I feel your pain. Because I've never been in their situation before. I've struggled, I've had different struggles in my life, but I've never experienced that same struggle that they're going through. So I'm not going to sit with them and try to connect with them by lying and say hey, I feel your pain. It must be tough, not having a house for the last 20 years. What do I know? Right? And I've heard this. I've seen it with other people that I was training, and I see them having this conversation and almost getting hit or spit at or getting different inappropriate words, because you don't feel their pain. But you can still be there for someone emotionally and mentally, being there for someone, even if you don't know what to say. But I'm available for that person. I'm able to validate their feelings. I'm able to acknowledge their pain. That's what this verse is talking about. So to recap everything we said, we're talking about the different characteristics of godly friendships. And we said the first one is bringing God in the midst of this friendship. Second thing is seeking the best for others, like Jonathan did for David, even though there was no reward, and he ended up getting killed and he died for it. The third one is putting effort and being intentional in my time with my friends. Encouraging and esteeming others, because God knows how much all of us need the constant encouragement all the time. Bringing peace, being peacemakers instead of fueling that fire. And the last thing is rejoicing for one another and feeling we're experiencing that pain. The last thing I'm going to end with, I read this in a book. I don't remember the name of the book, but it says, I think the book is called Fan or Follower, but مش فاكر. The biggest threat to the church today is fans who call themselves Christians but aren't actually interested in following Christ. They want to be close enough to Jesus to get all the benefits, and not so close that it requires anything from them. حد فهم حاجة؟ Read it again. And ask yourself, what type of Christian am I? Do I see Christ for who he is or for what he brings? And then take that question and apply it to friendships. Do I seek to have a friendship because I need people in my life to provide for my emotional needs, my physical needs, my mental, whatever it is, or I want to mimic what Christ did and how Christ lived in every friendship that I have? That's a question that only you can answer. Any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to add or ask or object? مش هغير حاجة كده كده يعني بس. I'm happy to listen. Nothing? Going once. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, so much. God bless you, Andrew. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about one of kind of like a really underrated topic of friendship and godly friends. You guys know about the saying that says, you are the average of the 5 closest people to you? You guys know about that? When I was younger, I used to look at my friends and be like, okay, this person is a doctor, this person is an engineer, this person is a lawyer, I'm probably going to be like a trash man or something, I don't know. But no, it's true. Having good people in your life brings out the good in you. And having not so good people in your life brings out the not so good in you. So get into the habit of surrounding yourself by godly people. This is why we have church. This is why we have priests and servants and discipleship. This is why we have meetings like this, so that we can come here and talk and discuss and chat and hear a message of hope, knowing that in life we're going to have a lot of tribulations and difficulties, but to be of good cheer, because God, Jesus, has overcome the world, and we have an opportunity to eternal life with Him, and we get to fellowship with one another in Him. With that being said, I wanted to jump into a burning question. I promise you I'll take maybe 10 minutes maximum, but I want your guys' engagement. I'm trying to look for another mic. Nope, nothing. Okay. Type. Let's talk about the topic of, since we're talking about friendships, let's talk about this topic. How many people growing up in their homes and in their families had parents that talked to them about something called hasad? Something called hasad. Raise your hands all the way up high if your parents talk to you about hasad, or like the evil eye. No? Just 3 people? Just 3 people? How about the saying that says, Dari ala shamaitak tudiq? Raise your hands all the way up high if you heard that before. All the way up high. Is there any other ones? I think there's like a couple other ones. No? Is that it? I think there's a few other ones. Abuna, do you know any other? Huh? Yeah, there's like a few other ones. Or the evil eye, that blue evil eye that they put in the car or in the houses sometimes. I've seen that before. Al-hasad. It's kind of close to what Andrew was talking about. What do you guys think about that? It's not real? Like at all? Like it's totally false? Bad energy. Bad energy, okay. It's conceptualized incorrectly. You wanna elaborate? Okay, tell me a little bit more. Nothing is right about it. It's not true. Like people can have ill intent towards you. يحسدوك غيرة. واحد غيران منك. متغاظ منك. في حاجة تحصل لك. You have, I love your bag, and then your bag's susta rips like 10 minutes later. No, that doesn't happen at all? 0? It does happen. Oh, it doesn't happen at all. Okay. So all of you guys are totally do not believe in it. So how many people here believe in it? Not even a little bit. A little bit. A little bit. Joseph, a little bit. Half, half. Sometimes. Amgad, a little bit. The hasad is from? The evil. Okay. Tell me a little bit more. Hasad, what do you mean? Hates someone else? Hates. Oh, hates? Hates someone else for whatever benefit or good they have. And then something bad happens to that person. No? No, nothing happened. So they're fine. They're not affected by it.
Sometimes, like there is, like as you give an example, maybe someone who has a new car and like, oh wow, what's
Yeah, and they get in a car accident.
and boom, immediately.
You can't tell me that's chance.
Yeah,
There's no way.
no, it happens.
And I'm saying you can't tell me that's coincidence. It's for sure like
How you can you explain this, right?
there's no other way. Okay, so you don't believe in it. Okay. 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 Do you have what are the other explanations? Mm-hmm.
Explains the same, like sometimes there may be like evil, he got you saying this. That wasn't an idea in his mind, but you gave him an idea since he said that. So I'm like, why I don't make this and like you
Right.
made as I mentioned.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying just somebody like sort of volunteering it as an idea, and all of a sudden you take it as real because somebody brought it up.
And maybe that was like it's gonna happen anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a mechanic problem. It's something issue in your car. It's gonna happen anyway. But just I said that like that was a
Okay.
fact.
What about Andrew? You want to say something? كنت هتقول حاجة. غيرت رأيك؟ Okay. Yeah, Joseph.
What if somebody
Uh-huh.
hates you so much
Uh-huh.
that they apparently like they ask the devil to hurt you?
Mm.
Something that can happen in your relationship with God not strong enough. Would that be like something that victimizes you later? And I wouldn't say it's like hasad like superstition hasad, but like something more like you're like I hate this person, I'm jealous of this person, so like they shaitan,
Hmm?
to go hurt you or something like that.
Okay. What do you guys think about that? Is that too much? Are we like way up there? So okay, let's go back to the word hasad. Do we believe in hasad at all? Do we believe in envy at all? Or we don't believe in envy? Yes, Maria. There's the envy of the devil. Okay. That's what you were saying, the envy of the evil. Okay. But there's no envy of people. No. Zero. There is? Yeah? Can you tell me more? If you say something against everybody else, I'm going to pick on you. As long as you're with everybody else, I can melik. No, tell us. We're just chatting.
So, your previous question, what came to my mind was for Job and how even the devil was saying to God that like he has everything, and the only reason he's believing in you is because he has everything, and so God allowed the devil to take everything away. So I think that the evil eye isn't real, but like in terms of like my son prayer, the devil's also listening. So the devil's gonna want to take away any blessings he get from God.
Okay, I agree with like 90% of what you said. That's true that the envy of the devil on Job, which is a really good example. But and it wasn't until God gave him permission, right? So the devil himself couldn't have done those things. And it was the envy of the devil from who? Like, what's the devil envious about? Right, which is what? What's the chance? What's that chance? To be with God, exactly. Ever since Adam and Eve, actually, that's when envy entered. حتى بنقولها في صلاة الصبح in the reconciliation prayer. Why don't I pull it up? Is it on the screen? Let's take a look at it. Of the devil, exactly. So Liturgy of St. Basil, this reconciliation prayer, if you ever get confused about anything, just go to this reconciliation prayer. You're going to learn a lot of things. Let's take a look at that really quick together. So it says, O God the great, the eternal, who formed man in incorruption. So God created us sinless. And death which entered into the world, how did death enter? Through the envy of the devil. Meaning death didn't enter the world at all. There was no death, there was no sin, there was no distortion until who became jealous or envious? The devil. Of what? Of our relationship with God. What we had with God, this harmonious relationship, this one-on-one, this open connection, this ability of Adam and Eve to walk around the garden in total freedom, with no embarrassment, with no fear, with nothing, just open communication with God in heaven, caused the devil to be very, very envious. And from there on out, envy entered to the world, even with Adam and Eve's son. Cain killed Abel because he was envious of him. And later we find out, like Simone was saying, about Job. Job was a man of a lot of blessings. He was like the Elon Musk of the day, right? He was a very rich person. He had everything you can think of. And the devil goes to God and says what? You know, he doesn't really love you because he just loves you. He loves you because he has all of these wonderful things. If I take all of those things away, let's see whether he'll love you or not. So God goes, sure, go ahead. Take everything. And that's what happens. Job is stripped away of all of his blessings, everything that he's ever had, his children, his belongings, all of his property, and he still trusted and loved God. Of course, his friends weren't the best of the best, but the story nonetheless shows his faithfulness towards God, and God ended up rewarding him, I believe, double and like multiple times what he had. But as far as the idea of envy, there is two types of envy. There's the envy of the devil, and there's the envy of people. But the envy of people does not affect us. And the envy of the devil will only affect us if God permits it. What do I mean by that? The envy of the people is an error on the person committing the sin of envy, meaning it is a sin for the person committing the envy. So like we were saying about friends that are constantly like looking at things and wow, like look, this, and that. These are the people who are committing the sin of envy or the sin of jealousy. And and it's a sin counted on them. But then we have the envy of the devil that doesn't affect us directly. It doesn't affect us like from a direct perspective, like it won't actually harm us. And we know this because even Jesus says in St. Matthew's Gospel that not a single hair of our head will ever fall out without God's like permission. That the hairs of our head are numbered. And he tells us that like he cares about us more than the sparrows and more than the sand of the sea, that his mercies are more than that. So there's never a thing that'll ever happen without like God allowing it to happen. But the envy of the devil, we ask God for protection from the envy of the devil. Not because the devil has any serious control over our actions or what we do, but he does influence us in different ways. We know that the fathers tell us that the devil will often plant ideas and thoughts in our mind, and that when we are drawn away with our sinful desires is because it is rooted in like evil, not in good. And this is why there is a constant struggle to like fill our minds and fill our hearts of that what is good than that what is evil. And every perfect and good thing comes from the Lord, but every evil thing naturally comes from the devil. So you guys are right. There is no basis or Christian basis at all about this idea of hasad or the evil eye or all of that. It's 100% superstition, and we believe that we're protected by God's hand. in every step of the way. It's not to say that when we act certain ways and when we present ourselves in certain ways, that we don't draw attention to ourselves. I think it's very important for us to understand rationally that how we present ourselves in society and in our community can either draw positive attention or negative attention. And sometimes those two things are very kind of muddled. It is possible also that, say, you are really good at your job and you constantly are like the go-getter, you have the first answers and you're this like overachiever and everybody could notice that you have that. It doesn't mean that this would not lead to like some sort of a conspiracy with other people who are like, oh, you know what, this guy thinks he's all that, we're going to bring him down. And then all of a sudden, like you were saying, somebody says, oh, give you the evil eye or غيرانين منك or whatever, and you could begin to imagine things like they somehow had like this supernatural effect on you. But it's just that they conspired against you. They conspired to deal with you negatively. So it's important that we live our life in meekness and in humility, but also doing our due diligence in everything that we do. Like, be fully given that you do your full effort, your full due diligence in every action and every decision and everything that you do, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. St. Paul says, "Kunu rijalan," be men. طبعا, of course, here it's not like a sexist idea of a man, like be a man. No, but it's the courageous, the diligence, the determination, all of those qualities of being intentional in what we do, from the slightest words that are come out of our mouth to the biggest steps that we take in our life, like the stages of accomplishments like graduations and engagements and marriages and so on and so forth. The more you become diligent about your day-to-day life, the more you start to notice and have that concept in psychology that they call self-awareness. Being self-aware of your actions and the way you present yourself, in person or virtually, both, like social media and things like that, can draw a lot of attention to you. And note that, that attention can eventually lead to people talking about you or speaking about your conspiracies. Not that we care about what people say or think, that's not the point. But understand that there is consequential reaction. There's a physics law that says for every action force, there's an equal and opposite reaction force. It's kind of true in the world of social life too. How we say things and what we say things will, totally out of your hands and out of your control, will cause other peoples to think and say things about us, whether they're right about it or not. So, at the end of the day, I think the message here is that we are only fearing God. We only fear God, and we know that we live in His protection. And a life of holiness a person who spends their life in holiness does not really become too involved in this idea of superstitions and what's going to happen. In fact, a person who's living a life of holiness is completely dependent on God in every stage in their life. Inshallah, with God's will, ربنا يدبر, God will arrange, God will work out all things for those who love Him. When you begin memorizing some of these verses, you'll find that is your natural response to any problem. حصلت مشكلة with a friend or with a relationship or with the school or with education or with a parent or a sibling, you find yourself responding in biblical manner and from the Psalms, and you're this is really not in my hand, this is in God's hand. And so you don't become really overcome by these superstitious thoughts. It's a life of letting go. It's a life of total dependence and surrender on God. And God protect us from the envy of the devil because he wants what we have. He wants what he cannot have. You know, we constantly have an option every morning. God's mercies are renewed that we could repent and confess and come back to him. But the devil has lost that. The angel and the devil have lost their free will. They no longer have free will. They had free will. The fathers tell us that angels and devils had free will at one point in time, which is why they were thrown out of heaven and they were cast into into a lake of fire, I believe. That's the wording. But gunudu, yani sultanu, they were cast out. And that is no longer an option for them. Like angels cannot be devils today, and devils cannot be angels. Like there's no longer that shift between them. But we have that opportunity every morning to repent, to seek God, and I think this definitely wages the war, because in St. Paul it says your enemy is like a roaring lion seeking to whom he can devour. So imagine like if they told you like on 19th Street there's a lion that's like roaring outside and he's going to come up sapphire into like what that would sound like that warfare, right? So the enemy is definitely waging a war constantly against us, but we believe that we are protected by the hands of God at all times. Buna, please, if you can comment on this hasad situation, if you have any ideas.
I agree with you 100%. I don't have much to add. It's people like they are not in charge of anything. Like we are all limited. But as Mina said, the envy of the devil is the one like maybe can affect us, but need to go through God first, like his permission. And as this is a perfect, I think, example, Job's story. And most of the time, like, you feel it affecting the worldly things, our possessions. So let's say if a car, it's a house, it's like something new. And in one way, it might seem hard because, like, let's say if I got a new car and then, like, next day I found it scratched or bumped or something, that's, like, very sad. But on the other side, also you can see it in Job's story. God wants Job not to be attached to anything, just attached to him. So even if God allows things that like comes, forget about hasad or the envy. It's just like it's between you and God. It's a personal relationship. If he wants you to grow, go up one more step, even if you have something you like or you appreciate, he doesn't want you to be attached to it. So he might, like it depends on your like spiritual life, he might allow it to be like not perfect as it's supposed to be, which like can affect you, like even for a moment, like we are sad, but the main point is our growth. So God turned everything people think it's bad to our good, eternal good. So yeah, it's exactly what you said. I don't have much to say, I'm just agreeing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, any final thoughts or comments about this? No? Yeah, I mean, it's something that we hear a lot from our parents. And a lot of priests and a lot of people still today. And by the way, this concept of evil eye is actually paganistic, right? It's from paganism all the way back, and it dates back to the early fathers. They talk about it, like St. Augustine, St. John Chrysostom. It's something that's been around forever. So let's go ahead and sing a song, and then we'll go eat in the hall.